Be the Good is all about people doing good in the world while following their passions, good for their own souls and for others. I'm Kate Chericello, and welcome to today's episode. Let's spread a little more goodness in the world. Hey there, so before Hilary comes on the screen, I wanted to tell you really quickly, I thought it was a great tie-in. We had Lucille last week, my aunt, who talked about the goodness of family, and that being both the family you're born with and the family you choose. Now, Hilary is going to be talking to us about her work with mother-daughter relationships, which is a really neat zoom in on a specific branch of family, and it's a very important one that gets overlooked a lot as well. Hilary comes from a background of therapy and has worked with a variety of different clients. So now she is honed in on mother-daughter coaching, and she has a lot of great things to say about that. So whether you are a mother or a daughter or a father or a son, I hope that you enjoy this episode of Be the Good. Today's episode of Be the Good, I'm so happy to introduce you to Hilary Truong. She is a coaching counselor who specializes in mother-daughter relationships. And a fun little bit to tie that all in, the reason we know each other is through our mothers, who have been really good friends forever, since before we can remember. And I'm just so happy that you're here today, Hilary. Thanks so much.
Thanks for having me. I'm so excited to be here. And I call you Katie. I know that the world doesn't call you Katie, but I've known you since you were a very little girl. So
I say answer to any variation of Caitlin, Katie, Kate.
Yeah.
Well, Hilary, I'm just going to ask you 5 questions. You can answer them however you'd like. And to start, there's so much more to hear about what you do. So just tell me who you are and what you do in your own words.
Sure. So my name is Hilary Truong, and I am a coach for mothers and daughters. I help them with their relationships with each other and making sure that any divide that they feel is healed and they have the tools to move on together. Because the truth about mother-daughter relationships is that any pain that we have between us, we feel, and it affects all of our relationships. So it's important that mothers and daughters know that there's help out there and solutions to what they struggle with. Because it's hard to find, I think.
Yeah, and it's such a great specific aspect of needs that you've found, and such a hugely important one. So I'm so glad that there's people, hearing about this and knowing that there's an outlet. Hilary, can you tell us more about your path to where you are now?
Yeah, so I've been a therapist for 15 years, and I started out working with families and children and doing play therapy. And so I was always comfortable working with relationships in the family. And then I started focusing on teen girls because I noticed that I connected well with them. I loved working with them, and it filled me up, and I felt like I could really make a change with them. And in working with teen girls, I started to notice that probably 95% of the time, they didn't have a good relationship with their mother. There's something about being an adolescent girl and that being a time when you rebel and push back against your mother, and really well-intentioned mothers not knowing how to deal with that, how to handle that. Like, girls would come into my office and they wouldn't allow their mother in the session. And being a family therapist, a lot of my work needed to be connecting the relationships in the family. So I picked up a book called The Mother-Daughter Puzzle by Rashka Hasseldine, and I read it from cover to cover in one weekend, and I learned all about the unhealthy dynamics between mothers and daughters. And it was so interesting to me. It answered a question about my own relationship with my mother. It helped me see my relationship with my daughter differently, and it provided a lot of answers for my clients who were struggling with their relationships, because nobody really talks about mothers and daughters and our relationship. Like you said, it's very specific. It doesn't get a lot of attention, but it's a huge part of our life. Like, if we don't have a good relationship with our mother or our daughter, like I said, it affects every area of our life. So I just decided I need to learn more about this. And so I took every class that Rashka has, and I've been working closely with her. Now I'm going to be teaching for her starting in the winter. And I built a coaching practice where I work with mothers and daughters all over the world over Zoom and help them heal their relationships.
Oh, fantastic, Hilary. And you mentioned working through Zoom, and that's such a blessing of technology right now. Now, with the pandemic, what has your world looked like and how has it changed? I'm assuming with Zoom, that's been a helpful aspect to have that. But what else looks different? And even with, I know because you have two kids who have been home through it as well.
Yeah. Well, so before the pandemic, I was using Zoom a little bit with my clients who would go to college, and I could still work with them even when they weren't, in my area. But I had a busy therapy practice in person 4 days a week. I think I had, a colleague I was working with, and yeah, really enjoying that. And then of course, when the pandemic hit, everything went online. Connections were lost a little bit. All of my therapy clients are really struggling. I was getting more and more therapy clients, and it became a lot. It became a lot of work, a huge need, and not something that was filling me up as much as I needed it to be. Not to mention, like you said, having kids at home, and my husband was at home, and it was just kind of chaos. And so I needed to rewrite that story and kind of fix that. And that's when I found Rashka. Was really at the same time. It was, during that summer. So my work in using Zoom is it's really lovely. It's as lovely as it can be, because I'm like, this morning I met with a mother and daughter who are in France and another one who's in England, and I'm just like learning about the world and cultures, and so I'm loving that. But yeah, so I guess life post pandemic is very different. I don't have my therapy practice anymore. It's closed. The only time I'm doing any work it's in person is if I travel to someone. So it's been really great. It was an opportunity to make some changes.
Wow, that's great. That's great. And I love what the phrase you said, by rewriting your story. That's such a great phrase and quote. I love to think about it. You didn't just say, I, shifted my career. I shifted what I'm doing. You said, rewrite my story. And I love that. Hilary, you're obviously part of a lot of what I like to call good news moments, seeing people change for the better, relationships get stronger. Are there any stories you'd like to share with either in your own life from what you've done and what you've learned, or through clients you've seen that have just found those good news moments in their relationships?
I'm going to think about it, Katie.
Yeah.
I forgot to think about that. I had something that came to mind. Oh my God. I mean, there's so many wins. I'm like trying to think of a really good one.
That's a great thing though. It's, you see them so much that it's like, where do you pick one then? Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yes, absolutely. So there are tons of positive stories of mothers and daughters who are committed to each other and themselves. And one in particular, like often mothers and daughters find me when they have very little communication, sometimes none at all. So they're coming from a place of silence, or maybe they haven't seen their grandchildren in a long time, or they're really not a part of each other's lives like they want to be. It's awkward, it's uncomfortable, anger and pain come up. So even if I'm able to help a mother and daughter connect with each other in our session, I feel like that's a win. If they're able to communicate with each other about like, this is why I feel hurt, this is what I need from you. They learn how to have this voice with each other. But then what's happened is my clients end up spending time together, and just the two of them getting together and doing something fun, and watching one mother and daughter in particular this summer go on, they call it holidays because they're in Europe, go on holidays together and have the grandchildren be with the grandparents. And they were talking about spending the night under the stars, and the daughter sharing with the mother, like labeling the stars and, talking to her about like what was out there and what they were looking at. And just beautiful moments where they're able to see each other as women, as humans, and not have the pain from the past get in the way for them anymore. That feels like a huge win to me, because it's a win for them, right? I mean, they've rewritten their story, their relationship story, and they're able to connect with each other, have fun, and communicate about the conflict that comes up in the future, because it will come up. That's part of relationships.
Yeah. Oh, that's so wonderful to hear. And Hilary, you mentioned that they had found you. How do clients tend to find you? Is it through Googling, the keywords? Is it through a therapy organization of some sort, or what?
Yeah. So, well, my mentor, Rashka Hasseltine, she teaches therapists and coaches about the mother-daughter relationship. So I'm listed on her website. And I think a lot of people find me just by Googling mother-daughter relationship. They come across my website. I'm on social media. I'm on Facebook and Instagram as well. Yeah.
Yes. And you do a lot on Instagram too, with stories and always just very inspirational or thought-provoking posts. So those are always wonderful. Yeah. Yes. And Hilary, last question for you. Is there any saying, quote, mantra you find yourself repeating a lot, and you can give me multiple, to either yourself or your clients?
Something I say a lot to my clients is, when we know better, we do better. Because they often will say things like, I wish I knew this 10 years ago, or I think it's too late for me, or I think it's too late for us. And I don't think it's ever too late to improve a relationship or improve something about your life. And if we don't have that information, if we don't know how to do it, how can we beat ourselves up about that, right? When we know better, now let's apply that information and do something different.
Good. That's a great one. That is so, all about growing, constantly growing. It just ties in so much. And Hilary, tell us about what your Instagram handle is, and Facebook, and where people can find you specifically online.
Yeah. So Instagram and Facebook is Hilary May Co. So it's my name. And then my website is liveandbloom.net.
Right. And I'll put those in the show notes. And for people listening on podcast versus video, it's Hilary with one L. Since you were the first Hilary that I ever met, I always that's what was in my head. And then I started to realize there were a lot of Hilarys with two L's. So Hilary with one L, May, M-A-E, Co, C-O. Hilary, I can't thank you enough for talking with me today.
Thank you for having me. This was fun.
You bet. And I know there's a puppy behind you somewhere, so sending hugs to him as well.
Thanks so much for listening to Be the Good with Kate Chericello. Whether you're listening on YouTube or via podcast, it would mean the world if you liked, subscribed, and or left a review. You heard about the good? Now go out and be the good in your life this week. If you have stories of good news that need to be shared, please send me a message. Thanks again, and have a great week.